I've been looking for one of these fly presses for a long time now, and I finally tracked down this beast. This is a Sweeney and Blocksidge number 5, and that 5 means that it should exert 5 tons of force. And it's called a fly press because of this long arm here, which has these big heavy weights on it, and that creates a lot of momentum, which drives the ram down really hard. One of the reasons that fly presses are so useful is that they have a stop collar. This allows you to stop the ram at a specific height. So let's say I wanted to forge a piece of steel down to a very uniform thickness. All I would have to do is set this stop collar, and that makes the ram stop at the same place every single time, which results in a very uniform thickness. This should be a really useful tool to have in my shop, but it's nowhere near ready to use. To get the most out of this machine, it needs to be bolted to the stand, and the stand needs to be bolted to the ground. And I also need to lift this machine up about 9 inches because currently my head is level with these cast iron weights. And it seems like a really bad idea to get cracked in the skull by one of these things when I'm not paying attention, because this arm really gets moving pretty fast. So I bought this stand along with the fly press, and I really like it. It's really heavy duty cast iron and it weighs a couple 100 pounds, but it's just a little bit too short. So what I need to do is lift this thing up. I've thought of a couple different ways of doing that. One of them was adding feet to these legs, but I think if I do that, it will make it slightly less rigid. So probably the best thing to do is to just stack pieces of plywood on this plate here, and that will bring the machine up that 9 or 10 inches that I need, and it will also maintain the rigidity that I need. So I think the first thing I need to do is to get this thing mounted to the stand properly, and then get the stand mounted to the ground. Before I take it off of the stand, I wanted to show you that this top plate here is actually a little bit bent, and it's not because the plate itself is bent, it's because it's kind of conformed to this stand. I noticed that the stand is not perfectly flat, it's kind of like this. And that's a little bit of a problem because I'm going to be stacking plywood on top of here, and I need that plywood to fit really nice and snug up against this plate, so I may have to just shim that plywood or maybe carve some of it out so it fits nice and flush. There is an existing hole in this plate for a mounting bolt here in the front, but there's none for the back, so I'll have to drill those out. You can see there's actually 6 holes here, which means that this thing has seen 3 different fly presses over the years, so this will be number 4. Oh man, this thing's heavy. Well, I got this excess piece of steel cut off here, but I just realized that I didn't lay out the holes for the back of the fly press, so I can use this front hole here, but unfortunately, yeah, I forgot to do this, so I have to put the fly press back on here and lay out those holes. These step drills are really awesome. If you haven't used one, you really should, because it made really quick work of drilling through like this 3/8 steel plate. I just got the holes drilled. Now what I can do is start working on the riser. I went to the hardware store and I got a 4x8 foot sheet of 3/4 inch plywood cut down to slightly more manageable pieces. So this actually makes it a lot easier for me. That way I don't have to rip the whole thing with my table saw on my own, but I should be able to get exactly the right amount of pieces out of this one sheet. I'm gonna cut the pieces at about 15.5 by 18.5 inches. That should be just right. Now that I see the stack on here, I have to say it does look pretty ugly, but hopefully once the fly press is on here and I get this painted gray, it'll look a little bit better. Now what I need to do is clamp this thing to the plate and then cut out some holes for these bolts. And then once that's fitting flush against this plate, then I can drill out the holes and then cut out the center hole here. I have all these holes laid out, but I don't have the center hole yet, so I'm just putting the piece of plywood under the fly press on the engine hoist, and I think that's probably the easiest way to do this. It's a little tricky because this thing kind of swings this way as it drops, so I have to kind of pull it as it's being gently set down onto this thing. Gently, yeah, it's easier said than done. There we go, that's actually pretty close. Well, not over here. Should be able to lock it in place though with this. Now I can just trace out this hole and get pretty close to where it is. That was pretty good for just eyeballing the center punch here. So I just made this a little bit larger than the circle that I just traced, and now I just have to cut this out with a jigsaw. I got all the holes drilled out on this piece, and now I can use this one as a stencil to cut all the other ones. I really wish I didn't make this hole here because I actually did a really bad job, and had I just had one little hole here, I could have transferred that hole over and then used a compass to draw out the circles on every other board, but it doesn't really matter because I'm planning on, after all these are stacked up, I'm just gonna 3D print like a sleeve to kind of fit inside all the holes, and that'll make it look a lot cleaner. So I'm not gonna film just drilling a bunch of holes in all the rest of these boards because that's gonna be really repetitive, so I'll see you when all that's done. All right, I got all the holes drilled in these things, and hopefully this is 2 or 3 too many. I think it probably is, but we won't be able to tell until I get the fly press on here and make sure that that handle clears my head, but we're gonna leave that for the next video. All right, that's gonna do it for this video. I hope you enjoyed watching me do this, and if you have any suggestions, then let me know in the comments. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.